Everyone, this is Timothy. Welcome back to our Entity Framework core series. In this session, we are going to dip deep into explicit loading in Entity Framework. This technique is crucial when we working with related data, and we will be explain how it works, how to implement it, and its advantage and disadvantage. So if you haven't watched the previous video on the eager loading and lazy loading, be sure to check those out and in the playlist titled as Entity Framework Core. So in the Entity Framework Core, there are three main ways to load the related data. Easy loading, where the related data is loaded at the same time as the main entity. So I want to show you some requests because last video I haven't explained too much in this function. So you need to have includes when you retrieve the employees, then they will retrieve the data of the employee. Okay. So and then because you need the employee detail and then the ER loading you call the employee detail. So this is ER loading. So when you need the data, then the database will retrieve the data at that time. Okay. So if you haven't retrieved, haven't used the data, then the database will not refresh the data. Just generating your code. So for example, if here you call the now when the program run on this line, then the data will be refreshed. So the employee details will be refreshed. So dependency entity will be refreshed when we call the properties. Okay. So just recap that concept. So we continue. So that easy loading, where the related data is only loaded when it's accessed for the first time. Okay. So explicit loading, which is a focus on today's session. So in this video, we are talking an example of an employee entity that has a relationship with other entities like employee detail. So we need we will see how explicit loading work in these cases and how differ from other tool techniques. So you will wonder what is explicit loading. So explicit loading is a technique where related data is explicitly loaded from the data at the later time instead of automatically with the main entity. So in other words, is related data related data is not registered with the main entity, but can be loaded later when required. So for example, imagine that we have employee entity as the main entities and the employee details as the related entity. So also we can call dependency entity. So with the explicit loading, we load the employee data first, and only when needed, load the employee details separately. Okay, so this method improves the performance by reducing the initial data load. So implementing explicit loading is something about you just need to how to say that we need to use the entity method on the DB context to load the related entity first. So after you to explicitly load the related entity, we use the entity method from the DB context class along with the reference or collect method. So for example, for one-to-one relationship such as loading the employee detail for an employee, we use the reference methods like something like let me see the code here. I make an example. Use a reference here, and then you call such as loading the employee detail, and then you call the load. You will flash the data. This is explicitly loading. So this is for one-to-one relationship. about regarding the one-to-many relationship. Um, you have to load. You have to call the context.entity and then put the manager entity in this, and then call the collect method, and then you we use the collection method, so we can collect the employees by using this loading method. So this allows us to load the related entity explicitly when required, optimize both memory usage and performance. So advantage and disadvantage of the explicit loading is, I think, advantage is the performance improvement, since the related data is loaded only when needed. Is reduce the initial amount of data retrieved from the database. So the memory efficiency also is a good point. By loading only the required related entity, so you reduce the memory use, and especially in the large data set. But also have a disadvantages. So will increase the complexity in your code. So you have to manage the loading of related entity manually, which can compress to your code. So additional query, if not handled properly, explicit loading may result in more data required query, more data query, which could slow down the performance and then could negatively impact the performance. So before you choose this technique, already evaluate your application specific needs and performance requirements to make the right decision. Okay, so now we go back to have a look the explicit loading here. So this is our explicit loading. So have the relationship with other, and look at this employee entity. This entity has relationship, okay, with another entity. This entity has one-to-one, okay, one-to-one. This employees has a one-to-one relationship with employee data, okay. So I open the employee data again. Here we have one-to-one relationship with the employee. Look at this piece of code here. Okay, we have one-to-one relationship. This is a reference navigation to the dependency entity, and then go to the employee details. This also is a reference navigation property. So we have a one-to-one relationship between employee and employee detail. So go back to the program. Here. So if you look at this piece of code, we are trying to access the employee, then we are trying to access related entity, that is employee detail. Now now if you run the program, you will see that what happened. We have, so if you don't have for example, oh no, okay, I see. So if you have happened is that if this have no relative data, then we'll get into next slide. We only refresh the data from the employee. But if you have relative employee detail data, so you will call this line, this code line, get into this code line. Okay, so so that's why when you call the explicitly, you have to manage the code more complex. So so if directly call the employee detail, and the situation is if the employee detail is loud, then you will get over here. Okay, so so explicitly loading is a technique in which related data is explicitly loaded from the database at the later time. Okay, so you know that now how we manually to control the explicit loading. Okay, I have another explicit loading, so you can use the any. Okay, is if you had the employee, and then you can continue to fetch the data. So here he will call the data. He will refer the data from the database. So this is very useful. This kind of technique can use to refresh the data when you required. Okay. So back here. So when you consider using explicit loading, so use explicit loading when you need to load related data on demand rather than loading every upfront. So and this is especially useful when working with a large data set where loading all related data as one could be resource intensively. So remember to balance the capacity of the managing explicit loading against the performance benefit is over. So in some cases, it may be better to use eager or lazy loading, depends on your performance requirement. So that's what's up our session on explicit loading in Entity Framework Core. We covered that what explicit loading is, how to implement it, and the pros and cons. So you should be aware that be sure to subscribe more video on the Entity Framework Core and leave your question in the comment below. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next session.